Huples cat. Sometimes you have to bug out. Are your plans resilient enough? Many prepping channels show storage of gasoline, and I do that, and talk about how to keep the car loaded with materials and stuff to help you in any situation, and I do that. But the reality is, bug out by car, van, truck in most scenarios of SHTF are going to be at best impractical and at worst a really bad idea. In the run-up to a full-scale nuclear war, I expect a lot of people, and I would be doing that if I'm still here, I would bug out. Preferably I'm going to bug out in advance, which is the end of October, to a wilderness area that I think is safe. This is the best bet. Bug out before you need to bug out to somewhere you're now going to live as your home that's reasonably safe, that's not an urban area and not a target area, and is safe from wildfires and floods and whatever else you might wonder that might come along to get you. If you're not in that situation, some events happen. Do not fall into normalcy bias. It's really easy, especially with young kids, to say, we'll pack the car, pack the van, and we'll leave in the morning. We'll get up early and we'll leave in the morning. In most urban areas, if you get up at 3 AM or 4 AM, you're going to find the roads completely jammed, if it's in a large-scale event that people are aware of. Do not leave the house more than 5 to 10 minutes after your first notification that you should bug out. Delay is fatal. The other aspect of normalcy bias that will be fatal for a lot of people in this type of a sudden scenario is driving to pick up family. Driving to pick up kids, driving to pick up the wife, driving to pick up the husband, driving to pick up granny. Consider your plans in advance. Make sure people who are going to pick up are aware of those plans. Is it practical for you to spend half an hour to an hour on congested roads full of terrified people, on foot, on motorbikes and on cars, on buses and police dashing around to try and pick up a 92-year-old grandmother from a nursing home? If it's a 4-year-old child in daycare, I can see why you're going to try that. But is it more practical to split the party into two and have bug out for part of the party and rescue and then bug out for part of the party? Think about it. It's going to be a lot worse than you've ever experienced, and if you've lived through hurricanes, this will be a lot worse. A sudden nuclear war, or a build-up to a nuclear war, or a super volcano going off, or a massive meteorite hit in Africa is going to cause a lot more panic than you are probably aware of. But in a natural event, how practical is a gasoline bug out actually going to be? Again, it's going to be great if you leave before the vast majority of people decide they need to leave as well. As you can see, driving during events can be very, very dangerous and is actually foolhardy, so bugging out during the event may be required, but it's not recommended.
It's pretty intense. A lot of wicked winds. With Katrina, we got about 2 feet of water in here that just stayed for about a week or two. But this was just a lot of wind damage and no power.
Power knocked out for all of New Orleans and much of the state of Louisiana after Hurricane Ida made landfall.
Driving afterwards, most of the roads are going to be impassable, and it also makes you a huge target. If you're driving around in a car full of supplies and nobody else is able to drive because there's no gasoline and you happen to have an electric vehicle like I do, that makes you kind of a big target. The decision might be to stay a day, stay 2 days, stay a week, let the mass panic and then leave. Depends on the scenario, depends on what's actually going on. But it's not altogether something I would consider to be a bad idea for a lot of scenarios. And this would even include certain nuclear scenarios. If you are reasonably comfortable that you can build a fallout shelter with positive pressure in a basement area, far enough, like 15 miles away from any nuclear drop, it might actually be a good idea to stay put and figure out later on what's going to happen.
There were reports of people trapped on rooftops. The first known death caused by a falling tree in Louisiana's Baton Rouge area.
Nuclear war to some extent and floods and fires to some extent can happen with zero warning. Zero warning. So you need to be ready to bug out at any given time. There isn't any indication to stay in place if your house is going to burn down or if it's going to flood to about 20 feet above the ground level. That's a really bad idea.
An idea. Look at this. Just how quickly that flooding in Globe happened. So this is video from Bonnie's Pizza right there in Globe. And you saw it just a little trickle. We sped it up for you because it lasts about 4 minutes. This is on their Facebook page. So watch, it's getting higher and higher. There go the barrels. There goes the sign as we keep watching this. And I think it was right in this area where the US 60 shut down. So let's bring in the owner, Joe Stapleton of Bonnie's Pizza. Joe, your surveillance camera really capturing this. First of all, I understand you have a lot of flood damage. I'm sorry about that.
So have all your vehicles never less than half filled. Always have your vehicles close to the home. Always have stuff in the vehicles to help you if you had to bug out without being able to add anything to the vehicle, and have spare gasoline. Be ready to move in less than 5 minutes in certain scenarios. Do not hesitate. Leave. You can always return. As much as the pictures in the video are going to make you viral on YouTube or Instagram, consider the safety aspect at all times. Documenting natural disasters and unnatural disasters is something that people like to watch and certainly gives people pleasure, but is it actually making your chance of escape less? Many years ago, a prepper told me he knew all the back roads in his city, and he felt convinced that he could drive from downtown and evacuate out of his city during a mass evacuation using side roads. I beg to differ, I beg to disagree. In a massive event that people are aware of and people are trying to flee for their lives out of a downtown urban core, there ain't no way any road's going to be passable to anybody. You need to know alternatives, and that will be a separate video. What do you do if you can't drive because you've had to leave after the majority of people on the road?
We didn't really believe it that much because I've been here for 63 years and this has never happened.
Wow.
But we were looking over the railroad track.
Right.
We got other films. We were looking at what we call the railroad track, which is a berm behind us with a track on top of it, and the water was coming over that, and it's about I would say 8-10 feet on the other side.
So,
and the water just started coming over that thing, and it was in minutes. We had to, evacuate our building.
That dumpster go by.
Non-car use would include things like planes, trains, buses, taxis. One of those things you might want to consider if you're trying to use the subway or trying to use buses, they may not be functional. And if they are functional, the numbers of people trying to use them might be so massive that the chance of getting out via that route is effectively zero, and the chances of being injured or even killed in a stampede is high.
Millions in the danger zone, crowds packing the New Orleans airport, and massive traffic jams on the roads, people heeding warnings to get to higher ground. These live images you see here from the Lake Pontchartrain area.
Many heeding that advice. Large crowds at the airport, traffic jams across the storm zone as families evacuate. Our Trevor Alt is on Interstate 10 near the Texas-Louisiana border.
We're just crossing the state line into Louisiana, and look at all the traffic headed out of the state. We are 240 miles west of New Orleans. All of these people trying to evacuate into Texas.
Now in these videos, police, fire, ambulance are actually functional. This is a localized event that people know is going to happen. A hurricane's going to make landfall, so we're asking 1 million people to get out of harm's way. So in a sudden event that isn't planned, that is maybe national or global in scope, do not expect the police to be doing anything else other than running away as fast as they can with their own families. Most of them will do that if the alternative is to stay and die, but do not overestimate the effects of a nuclear war or a supervolcano or a massive asteroid strike on people's ability to completely lose it and lose it really, really quickly. There's going to be violence, people are going to try and take your vehicle, people are going to be driving the wrong way, people are going to be driving too fast. The roads that are passable will quickly become impassable by car accidents. If you sat in traffic for an hour and a half going nowhere and you think a nuclear bomb's about to drop on your hometown less than a mile from you or 3 miles from you, don't expect people to act rationally. They won't.
Driving through South Lake Tahoe and across the state line, the usually packed area, now a ghost town, filled with smoke from the Caldor Fire.
You can't really describe it to someone from where we're from, that, you know, you're having a pizza and there's ashes landing in your pizza.
I haven't gone for terrible pictures here. We've all seen terrible pictures recently, unfortunately, wildfires. But consider that smoke can drop visibility at daytime down to 0. So again, in an automobile, trying to drive at speed with congested, frightened traffic on the road isn't necessarily going to be as safe as you think it is. Visibility might be 0, even with lights on.
Good evening, I'm Peter Mansbridge from downtown Toronto. For the most part, an eerily dark Toronto.
In consequence to most natural and unnatural disasters, power will go out. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do a separate video talking about power outages on a grand scale and how people react and when what happens and what you need to be doing before, during and after the event to protect yourself, and indeed how you would in fact bug out in that type of a scenario.
The staff here at the National were among 50 million on the eastern seaboard plunged into darkness at 4:11 p.m. Eastern Time on August 14th, 2003. The hours that followed were both confusing and chaotic as commuters tried to get out of downtown cores without traffic lights or subways. But when the sun set, there was an eerie calm.
Don't expect planes and borders to be passable to you in a sudden event. And yes, we could have that in Canada, we could have that in America, we could have a sudden change in government that causes a large percentage of the population to decide to flee.
Getting a video of this.
Don't expect the adjoining countries to suddenly say, yeah, sure, we'll let millions of you guys in. It's highly unlikely, especially if it's a global event that's triggering this, that any country will offer you safe passage.
Za swoje granice, ale także za granice, przecież wschodnie granice Unii Europejskiej musimy podejmować takie decyzje, żeby zapewnić pełne bezpieczeństwo Polsce i Unii.
Musimy być przygotowani na każdy scenariusz rozwoju wydarzeń, na każdą prowokację graniczną. Tak, jesteśmy zaatakowani przez wrogie reżimy i nasze bezpieczeństwo jako państwo i obywateli.
Now this is the only, as far as I'm concerned, use of precious metals in prepping. If you have significant quantities of precious metals on you, you might be able to bribe your way into a plane or a train, you might be able to bribe your way across a border. There is much more likelihood that you will have the precious metals removed from you and you'll be shot. If you get to the border, you're probably going to be one of tens, hundreds, maybe millions of people clustered around that border trying to get to safety, trying to get help. With literally nothing but the clothes on your back and maybe a bug-out bag if you're smart and prepped. That's not going to last you that long. I'm sorry, but it isn't. Don't expect the transit that you're normally used to function. Don't expect the normal reciprocation of people treating you well because you're American or because you're an Australian or because you're Canadian to exist. If you happen to be, for some bizarre reason, in the Caribbean on holiday, don't expect the locals to treat you after the event like they treated you before the event. Be ready to evacuate at all times, like, go. Hesitation can entrap you and can kill you. To illustrate this, I have a very localized event to show you to finish this video off of a tsunami in the Arctic caused by ice melting. No, I'm not going to go on about human-caused climate change at this point, but it's instructive to see what happens during this video. They've seen the ice fall, nothing's much going on, they're kind of excited by seeing so much ice fall, the noise and the power is amazing. But then they realize that that's a wave and it's coming right at them. Within a couple of seconds of that realization, the person in charge of that boat has turned the boat on an angle away from the wave and is accelerating at full speed away from the wave at an angle. And if you notice, the reason they're at an angle is because they're actually putting themselves between the wave and rocks and ice. Rather than just going straight away from the source of danger with nothing between you and the danger, whoever's in this boat has done a very smart decision. They've actually angled the escape to get as far away as they can, but to maximize local structures to prevent the majority force of that wave from actually just unimpedingly hitting that boat. I'm kind of hoping the comment section is not full of "I'm never bugging out, I'm always bugging out" type scenarios. You really don't know. You need to be able to bug in place and you need to be able to bug out. But consider the fact that North America is enamored and in love with automobiles. There's numerous videos online of people showing you $350 gasoline containers and Toyota Highliners, and they think that they're going to drive in an event. They might be able to. They definitely will be able to if they leave before the event hits and before the majority of people notice it. The problem's going to be that you are a human being and you have the same constraints on you about work and family that the rest of us have. And it's going to be very difficult to just pick up sticks and flee and become literally a refugee. If you have somewhere to go, if you have a bug out location or you have several family and friends away from likely danger areas and you've got stocks and stores in those areas, it's a lot easier to bug out because you're not bugging out. You're not running away and then hoping that the army then looks after you, resupplies you, keeps you fed and then gets you ready to fight again. Bugging out in a wartime situation means you stay, you die, so you just flee. In prepping, you shouldn't just be fleeing. There are occasions where that may happen, but have stuff buried in the ground, have places to go, have plans, have a gear, have equipment, have different scenarios in your head. So if you have to bug out, even if you love your little homestead, if you have to bug out, you do have an operational plan that is actually reasonable, not an unreasonable one. Don't be fooled by the slick videos out there pushing products, pushing a lifestyle that gives you the impression you can be absolutely safe in SHTF. You can't be. We're all going to need a ton of luck. Toodles. This has been a Wolfie Terrier 2021 production. Wolfie, Wolfie, Wolfie.